Welcome to the Christian Youth Camp Podcast. At Camp Chioka, it has been our mission for over 50 years to lead campers into a deeper relationship with Jesus Christ and each other. These conversations share the heart of our camp family in efforts to lead us all into a deeper relationship with the Lord. Y'all, today you get to hear from one of my sweetest friends, Dayle Mueller. I have only known her for a couple of weeks, but it feels like a lifetime. She is a University of Illinois graduate and is serving this summer on our programs and worship teams. She'll talk about seeking God in the hidden place as well as in everyday life. Beyond that, we got to talk about praying even when we don't feel like it and even when it's hard and even when God feels distant. Dayle is passionate about the gift of community and loving our neighbor without any boundaries or exceptions. She is also a friend that loves so intentionally and so well and calls people higher. She has been the voice of God and voice of love in my life so many times already, so I am grateful and excited that y'all get to hear her heart. Dayle, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Do you feel famous now?
I kind of do. This is new for me.
So, you are new to camp, obviously, this year. But I just always kind of heard you described as like a prayer warrior and just like such a spiritual gift before. So kind of with diversity in your prayer time, how do you view that? And like, what are your favorite ways to pray and experience God?
Yeah. I think it changes a lot depending on like season and stuff. But something that I've just loved to do in terms of just like getting to know the Lord more is to just see Him in all different aspects of life. Like I feel like when I first really started walking with the Lord, I did, like read my Bible and like worship. And those are still things that I love to do today, especially like worship and all that. But one of the things I remember when I first really started like walking with the Lord and really just beginning to cultivate like this friendship with God was just noticing Him in everyday like life. Like I would even just like, if I was working out like at the rec center or something, like imagine like Jesus like in the treadmill like running with me or like walking with me to my classes on campus and just like literally like, because that we know that God's like always with us, but like really like making that like a mental picture, but not even just like a mental picture of like, oh, I'm just pretending like Jesus is here with me, but like it suddenly became a reality of like, wow, God, you are really ingrained in every moment and every day of my life. And so that was really kind of like revolutionary for me in terms of just like growing in friendship and relationship with God. But then also, like, there's this other aspect of just, like, prayer and intimacy that's can only be found in that secret place, only be found in that prayer closet. And those are the moments that I've found I've grown the most, like, in my own walk. And although I love, like, conferences and going to church and all these, like, huge corporate gatherings, there's something so special and so sweet about just simply being with God and just getting to know God for God and not through like the eyes of other people, but just like knowing Him personally. And so I think like that's created so much fruit in my life of just learning how to just be with God and to be still, and whether that looked like reading my Bible or whether it looked like worshiping or just sitting there and praying, having a list of people like on my heart or situations to pray for has been so cool. So I think like just the balance of like that secret place time with God, but also like being aware that He's in every single moment of every day at the same time.
I love acknowledging both sides of it because I just bring God back to being a friend all the time. And if with our friends we only hang out with them one-on-one, then it can be kind of awkward that first time we're in a group setting with them. And you're like, wait, I thought you were just how does this interact well? Yeah. But then on the flip side, if you only hang out with them in a group, how is He going to know the deepest parts of your heart? And I love what you said at the beginning about, like, going to the gym with Jesus and Him being with you. Because very specifically, a couple mornings ago, I was in the bathhouse brushing my teeth. And I'm like, okay, after this, I'm going to go spend time with the Lord, then breakfast. And just had this, like, moment of remembering I'm with Jesus right now brushing my teeth. Yeah. Like, my quiet time doesn't have to start in 10 minutes. It can start right now. Yeah. Which is so beautiful and good to remember.
And even with, like, other people, too, and something that I've learned, like, just since being out at camp is, like, because I love, like, having those times, like, just away with the Lord, and I'll do that in the morning. But there are some times, like, not even just out here, but even, like, just throughout, like, my day at home or whatever, that I'll be like, oh, God, like, okay, I'm just going to, like, go and, like, read my Bible. Like, if a friend asks, like, hang out, I'll be like, oh, no, like, I want to spend time. But then there are times that, like, the Lord will tell me, like, no, like, I actually want you to, like, hang out with that friend. And usually, like, there's something, like, God speaks to that person or, like, through that time together. And so I think it's just cool, like, seeing that, yeah, like, God's in everything, and that, like, you don't have to limit him to, like, one way of, like, connecting with him.
Yes, absolutely. And I know I can become very introverted and very withdrawn very fast. And I, like, just think of specific times in college where my friends have asked to hang out, and, like, we have a prayer night every Tuesday at our campus ministry. I'm like, I just really want to go and just, like, sit in the silence, but being like, no, Jesus would say, okay, yes. Like, if you want to be with me, I will go, and I'm going to rearrange my schedule for you.
Yeah.
So how has your life kind of changed from that union with him, found both in the secret place and with others? Like, how does it look different when you walk into a room knowing Jesus is with you?
Wow. I mean, that, like, just changes the game. And I think it's something that's, like, so easy to forget all the time, especially when you step into new areas or, like, take new risks or new, like, leaps of faith, whether it's just, like, going to a new school or, like, coming to camp or, like, just doing things that are first time things that you may not feel like you're ready for, like, fully equipped to step into. But, like, knowing that God is not only with you, but, like, he's for you and he's rooting for you and he's, like, on your side, it's just so cool because you can draw from that as opposed to, like, other people. And I think for so long I've always been the kind of person that would be, like, so worried about what other people think of me. Are they going to like me? Like, walking into a room with people that I don't know, like, are they going to accept me? Are they going to like me? Like, feeling like I even have to, like, be a different person or, like, be more funny or be more outgoing or be a certain way in order to feel accepted. But knowing that God's with me and that, like, I'm already, like, fully 100% approved by him and, like, there's nothing that I could do that would make him love me more or less, like, makes it just so easy. And it just makes, like, even building relationships with other people and stepping into rooms of just, like, unknown and just, like, the unknown in general a lot easier, knowing that, like, you already have that stamp of approval and, like, you don't need to work for it.
It's showing up to new places always scared me as well. And I remember feeling like I was auditioning to be people's friends and, like, testing the waters and, okay, do they like me? Can I act this way? Can I be myself? But if we know, like, God's already given us the part and we are who we are for a reason, it's like we're on this rock that never leaves, and other people kind of come to us instead of us venturing out from the Lord to go to them.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
For sure, yeah.
And then you and I were talking the other day about, like, kind of going to a quiet place and just letting the Lord love you and sitting in silence. What does that look like for you, like, when you're in a rut and you don't really know what to pray about or you're not really desiring prayer?
Man, I think, prayer is one of the things that I think can be, like, the hardest to do, and it's always most beneficial at the times when you really don't feel like doing it. And I think something that I've learned is going into prayer, I'd almost feel, like, exhausted because I felt like I had to, like, have everything together, have all my thoughts collected, have, like, you know, okay, God, like, this is what I'm struggling, this and this and this and this, and, like, kind of go down the list. But the more that I've grown with him, the more I realize that I can literally just come and be, and I can just, like, he already knows what's on my heart. Like, he already knows what I'm dealing with. He already, like, knows me. So why do I feel the need to, like, hide it from him? And I've noticed when I try to go in already kind of, like, half okay and just, like, kind of be, like, surface level with God, I never fully, like, get freed or, like, find, like, freedom in whatever I'm dealing with because I'm not actually being real with God. So I think, like, going into those times of prayer and, like, just being brutally honest, like, allows him to actually, like, like, take those things from you. Like, when you fully, like, lay down anything that you're holding on, like, it allows him to, like, fully take that from you, and, like, you can walk out, like, in so much freedom and so much joy. And, like, I remember, I think I was talking about this with even Brittany earlier today, but just, like, I don't remember who said it, but, like, you should always leave, like, prayer, like, better in a sense than when you came in. And I think, like, so many, oftentimes I catch myself, you know, going in and, like, spending time with God and just kind of, like, ranting and just saying that's this, which is good, but I don't actually wait long enough to, like, stop and sit and let God then, like, refresh my soul and speak truth and speak life. And when you just go in, you just list off all your things and leave, and you don't leave actually, like, feeling better, like, it's almost just like you're, like, complaining or, like, using God as a sounding board instead of, like, actually, like, communing with him and being like, hey, like, I'm really, really struggling with this, like, help me in this.
Yeah, and even when you sit there in those moments of silence after bringing all the things, there's healing happening in your heart, even if it's silent in your head. And I was talking with a friend about this last night, but just when there is a lack of desire to pray, and she's like, there's so much that, like, it's just intimidating that like nothing is wasted to God. And if we say, God, I'm going to sacrifice this hour, or I'm going to sacrifice this 5 minutes, whatever it is, he's going to do something. And he does the most when we feel like he's doing nothing. Which is so beautiful. And then something that's been so fun about being friends with you is that like you showed that life with the Lord is fun and that like it's an adventure. And I was talking with a friend about this semester, but she's like, sometimes I get intimidated to go into prayer because it feels so heavy, and I have that list in my head of things to get to. But then she remembers, like, if I'm dating someone and every time we hang out together, it's heavy and we talk about all of our deepest, darkest secrets, I'm going to run away from that person. So she's like, sometimes we do just have to hang out and, like, say, Jesus, I want to have fun with you. And that fun and, like, sitting by the lake and just relaxing, like, those moments are healing as well.
Which is so cool. Just being out here, like, it can't, like, laughter is medicine. And so I think sometimes we can take ourselves too seriously in a sense of just, like, even in our walk with God, just being very, like, I don't know, like, I think God is obviously, like, sovereign, and there's, like, this fear of the Lord that, like, we're all called to carry, but also, like, he's so fun, and, like, he comes to give, like, life abundantly, and he's funny, and, like, he has, like, a personality, he has a heart, like, he has, like, characteristics to him, and, like, he's, like, you know, like, we can relate to him, like, we're made in his image. And so I think sometimes, like, even just, like, putting on songs like Dancing in the Middle of Volleyball or, like, brushing your teeth, you know, like, those moments are just as, like, quote-unquote spiritual as, like, sitting and down and praying or worshiping. Like, I think there's no divide between the two, you know?
And, like, he made our desires, and he knows that it's not our desire to sit in solitude 24 hours a day. Like, he knows we want to dance during volleyball, as we did last night. And that's something one of our counselors, Miranda, said, like, we all laugh in the same language, and it's written in the staff table in the staff room, which so I've just thought about more, and it's so true, because that's the one thing, laughter and tears is what he made us all do.
Wow, that's so cool.
So I've seen you fill so many positions at camp, and we've literally been here for a couple weeks together, and it's your first year. But you've helped write SELAs, you've been a worship leader, and I know you're super involved with your campus ministry at school. So how do you preserve your personal union with Christ when it can almost seem like a job and like a duty to other people?
I mean, I think you have to make that the priority, and I think that's something anyone that goes into ministry or works in ministry, like, will find at some point. It kind of, the lines start to, like, blur between, like, personal time and, like, ministry, which, like, it shouldn't, but, like, for example, like, worship leading and, like, worship directing for our, like, college ministry back home. Like, there were so many times I'd be sitting down, just, like, intent, just, like, worship with my guitar, but then my mind will start to wander, like, oh, that'd be, like, a really cool song, or, like, this would be a really cool set, and, like, start imagining, like, oh, like, planning for things instead of, like, just sitting and being with God. And so I think you just have to have your priorities set straight of, like, everything that you do has to be from an overflow of that, like, time with the Lord, and not, like, vice versa. Like, you shouldn't be using ministry, you shouldn't be using ways that you're serving in order to, like, have your time with God, but it should be, like, a natural flow from, like, being with him. And so I think it's just, and it's growing, like, I don't think there's, like, a specific, like, answer way to do it, but I think it's just, like, keeping your priorities straight and remembering that, like, your number one priority here on earth is to love God with your whole heart and to love other people just the same. And so, like, if you're doing that, you're on the right track. And if it ever becomes, like, you're putting ministry or something else above, like, your time with God, or above just, like, being kind to, like, the person next to you, that's when you kind of have to do, like, oh, like, a heart check, like, okay, something's off, something's not aligned here. And you'll begin to feel it, like, eventually. You'll start to feel burnout. You'll start to feel like, oh, this used to bring me so much joy, now it's feeling like a job. You're like, you'll notice those red flags and those signs, and it's just like, it's not a big deal. It's just like, all right, like, let's, like, reshift the focus.
And I know for me, it's constantly asking the question, am I being fully his? Am I being fully the Lord's? Or am I doing the things to look like a Christian? And we talk about that at my campus ministry all the time. It's like, we repost these verses and stuff to our Instagram stories and, like, see something beautifully written and repost it, but didn't we bring that thing to prayer? And, like, did we address Jesus in that moment, or did we immediately send it out instead of letting it go through our hearts? I think is, like, a good heart check.
And I think even just, like, resting the fact that, like, man, there's so many times that I feel like I'm, like, you know, like, almost like, God, like, oh, I'm doing this and doing this. And, like, I just think, like, he's so relational. And, like, so many times he'll just be like, Dayle, like, I just like being with you. And, like, I'm proud of you. And, like, just resting in, like, that fact that, like, he made you to, like, be loved. Like, he made you to have a relationship with you. Like, yes, like, we're called to, and, like, do all these amazing things and advance his kingdom. But, like, his sole purpose in creating you is just to, like, love you and have a relationship with you. So, like, always making that, like, amazing.
And our gifts are always meant to be shared. And we're meant to be sent out for mission. But I think if we're fully letting him love us, that's just going to happen so naturally. And we're not going to have to think about what comes out of our mouth when we enter a room. Because the things our heart's full of is what's going to come out. So then you've talked a lot, kind of switching focuses from prayer to community. You've said, like, when you showed up to Camp Choka for the first time, it felt like home. Can you kind of talk about, like, that concept for you?
Yeah, man. This is, like, something I can talk about forever. I love it. But community is something that I've, like, grown in so much just because I don't know, like I was saying, like, I just always, like, value, like, time alone with the Lord. And I always kind of, like, struggle and just, like, really, like, letting myself, like, be fully, like, a part of a community. And it wasn't until, like, I found, like, my college ministry back home that I really realized, like, wow, like, this is more than just, like, friends, but, like, these are family. Like, these are my brothers. These are my sisters. And so, yeah, coming to camp, like, before I had heard so many just amazing things about, like, other people that I've known that have gone here. And I knew it was, like, a really, really special place. And then came here in January for the college retreat. And I just remember, like, being so in awe of just how, like, close everyone was. And it was just, like, you could really tell, like, it was such, I don't know, it was just, like, such a family coming into here. Like, you immediately, like, you just get, like, swept into, like, this culture that's already been, like, established here for, like, generations and years. And so I think, like, I remember there's a specific moment, like, when we were just writing prayers. Like, the gym was still under construction. We were just writing prayers over, like, the summer and the campers. And I just remember just feeling so overwhelmed with just the sense of how special this place is and how, like, special, like, these people are. And I don't know, I think, like, God, like we're all, like, one big family, you know, like, being, like, children, like, we're all just, like, one, like, huge family. And family is so God's heart, like, for his children and for, like, all of humanity. And so I think, like, always following, like, that peace and that place of just feeling, like, home. Like, I don't even know how to, like, describe it fully, but it's just, like, a place where, like, people, we talk about this all the time too, like, people from all over different places, like, all different backgrounds can just come and, like, be fully loved, fully accepted, and, like, fully just, like, known. And I think that's, like, the coolest thing about being, like, a part of the body and being a part of, like, camp even. It's just, like, it is one big family. It's just, like, one huge home.
Yeah, I love what you said. That's God's heart for humanity, because we get to express that and live that out intentionally here. And then once we leave camp, it's like, well, we're supposed to carry on that home, and we're supposed to accept and love people in the same way. So how does your concept kind of home and family from the body of believers change the way you are outside of maybe the church body?
Yeah. Well, can you maybe clarify a little bit, like...
Yeah, so, like, when you're at, like, school or in, like, a secular setting. How that changes the way you live based on the family that you have.
Well, I think growing up, so my family really isn't, like, believers. And so sometimes I feel, like, more, I don't know, sometimes I feel, like, closer connected to, like, my, like, family believers just because, like, we share that same, like, spiritual connection. But also, like, I think in terms of, like, secular settings and just, like, people who maybe don't, like, follow, like, Jesus, realizing that they still, like, although they may not, like, have given their life to Christ yet, or they don't believe in that fully, like, they're still God's kid. Like, they're still, like, he still chose them to be, like, alive. Like, there's still, like, hope for them, whether they, like, realize it or not. And so I think just treating everyone, like, with that same, like, regard, and I think it can be so easy, like, I don't know, be like, oh, like, they're, like, not Christian, or, like, they don't get it. But I think, like, really just love it. Like, we're just called to, like, love people in general. Like, there's no, like, qualifiers on, like, who you can love and who you can't. And, like, in fact, like, the Bible talks about how it's so much easier to, like, love people who are like you, but it's so hard to, like, love your enemy. And so I think, like, not that people are your enemy, but just, like, loving people that are hard to love, like, really like shows like, I don't know, like shows that you like carry God's heart for like people, because that's exactly like what Jesus did when he was here on earth. Like he loved the unlovable. Like he loved the people who were cast out, the people who were different, the people who weren't like following God or like.
Yeah, and Bob Goff talks a lot about that, and everybody always that's really stuck with me is when he said, Jesus said to love your neighbor. He said that because there's no boundaries to what your neighbor is.
Yeah.
That is everyone in all settings.
Yeah.
But it starts with the people closest to us, who a lot of times we like look past.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of people can be intimidated by Christian community because they already seem like best friends, because like showing up to camp, we all have been friends for so long. Yeah. So what would you say to someone kind of, they have their own relationship with the Lord, but they're hesitant to enter a campus ministry or a youth group or whatever it is?
I would just say to be open to it. And I think every like campus ministry, like, I don't know. I like my pastor would say like, we're all just like different like flavors of ice cream, you know? Like, we're all ice cream, but each one has like their own like flavor. Like this one's like vanilla, this one's got some sprinkles, you know?
Yes.
And it's like everything has like their own flavor. And so I think just like being open and like, I don't know, it's not so much about like finding the right ministry. It is about like finding like your people, and community is like so important. Like you were like, this was never set up to do alone. Like yes, like your faith is like your own relationship with Jesus, but like it was never meant to do like solely on your own. Like it was always meant to be like immersed in like community. And so just finding those people that can encourage you, can uplift you, like just surrounding yourself with those people who like are pursuing God, who are pursuing those things that like you're going after. It's like, I don't know who says this or if it's like a real thing, but like you are like the combination of like the 5 closest people around you. Like I've noticed in my time of just like how important it is to be surrounding myself with people who I trust to call me out in love, who I trust like want the best for me, who I trust like are gonna walk with me. And so I think being open to that, like it can be scary. Like when I came to my college ministry, I didn't know anyone. Like I just saw it. We had like this, like this was called Quad Day, where they had just a bunch of different ministries and clubs you could get involved in. And I saw it and I was so nervous to go, like would ask my roommates if anyone wanted to come, and no one like seemed interested. So I didn't go the first few weeks because I was so nervous and I was super, super shy. And then one day I just was like, you know what? I'm just going to try it. If I don't like it, I don't have to go again. But like, I just need to like figure out like what this is like. And I walked in those doors and I was so terrified, like the shy little like scared freshman girl walked in this room full of people who I had no idea what they were like. I was terrified, but I walked in and was just like greeted with love. And so I think it's always worth that risk to like find community. And even if you're already planted in a community, like it's always worth that risk to be vulnerable and to let down walls and to like be honest and open with people, because like, I don't know, we all need that. Like we all need people surrounding ourselves. And so I think it's okay to like let your guard down, and I think it's okay to take a risk and to just put yourself out there.
And I think any steps into the door of a campus ministry or any steps towards the Lord's people or towards community or any of those things are never going to be steps that you regret. Like even if you're scared walking in, look how different your life is now that you went.
Yeah, forever changed.
So from kind of your top friends and just the people that you surround yourself with, what are some of the traits and things that you love about your friends that you would encourage other people to look for, looking for good Christian friends?
Yeah. I think thinking of my core group, I think we're all very different in a sense, but we're all after the same thing. And so there's different things that I learned like in my individual relationships with each one of them. It's just like another aspect of God. But they're all, like, pursuing the Lord, like, with their whole heart. Like, they're all, like, so intentional with just, like, loving the people around them. And I think just people, like, no one's perfect. So I'm not trying to say, like, trying to find perfect people. And, like, even camp, like, I realize, like, this is kind of rare to be, like, surrounded by all these incredible, amazing people. Like, it's not always the case, like, no matter where you're from. Like, there might be places where, you know, there's just, like, not a lot of people that are pursuing the same things. But I think just looking for those people that are like genuinely just going after God. Like I think other personality traits will follow, like obviously like kind and caring and like supportive and all of that. But really just people that are like pursuing the Lord with their whole heart. Like those are the kind of people you want to surround yourself with.
Yeah, and I think something cool about those friendships And I don't know if you've seen this to be true, but there are so many more hard conversations that happen with those people. And like with that camp, or with people at camp, I've had more hard conversations than I have with anyone else. And we're all pursuing the Lord. And also just living together, you become more aware of people's shortcomings. But like that's what iron sharpening iron is when we're able to like call one another out in love. Whether it's you haven't been loving me well, or like we should do this differently with our campers, because we are walking towards the same thing.
Yeah, and I think sometimes we can like take the whole like loving people as just being very superficial and like not like, you know, calling people out, but that is love when you're able to like look at someone and be like, hey, I love you, like you're better than this. Like that's what love looks like. That's what Jesus did, you know, and we're called to do the same, and not just like I was the type of person that Enneagram 9, but I was just like swipe things under the rug and be like, it's fine, I'm not going to deal with it. And as I've grown in Christian community, I've noticed that conflict is like a thing. Like conflict is a real thing, and it's
not
okay.
bad.
It's actually so good. And like any time that I've embraced it and been willing to like be honest and vulnerable and real, and to speak into other people, but also allow other people to speak into my life, like I've only become better, and they've only become better, and we've only become better together. And I think like it's just a scare tactic when like you feel fear of just like, oh, I can't like talk to that person, I can't bring this up to them, they're gonna think this, they're gonna think that. Like it's always so worth it to just have that conversation, no matter how scary it is.
Yes, and I think we put it on ourselves to be like, oh, I can just fix this with Jesus because I'm working on some insecurity. But the Bible says go to your brother if you have something against them, and like go to them first, and then like proceed from there. So if you can ask for clarity, get it. If you can strengthen the friendship, do it. Like let there be no division among believers.
Yeah. And even just in anything, like I remember like one of the first few nights when I got here, and like I was just kind of like feeling off about something, and I was like, oh, like this is just like something I'm gonna have to work through so I can like be fully present. And I remember like you were talking with Kendall outside the cabin, and I like walked in and I was like, okay, God, like it's fine, like I'm just gonna like work on this with you. And I like so clearly remember him saying like no, go talk to
back out the door.
Literally go back out there. Like I remember like grabbed you guys like, hey, can I it was super awkward because I didn't even know you guys like super well at the time. And I was like, I just knew, and I was just like remembering like, okay, these people like I can trust and like lean on, and like God will like work through them. And like yes, like obviously he wants you to come to him, but also like he knows like he sets you in like communities of people for a reason to like lean on. And so just like super grateful for that community. And like it's so if I could encourage anyone in anything like community wise, like find those people that you can do that with.
And it's such a gift to all involved, because then you did the same thing for me like a week later. And just like, no, open your mouth, like talk to, because we're still talking to the Lord, but it's just like the Lord alive in a person, because he sends us people. So then the last two questions that we ask everyone, the first one is, what would you go back and tell yourself before ever coming to camp?
I would just say, I don't know. It's probably the same stuff I'm still telling myself now, but just like really just be open and like be present in every moment. Like especially with camp, like it's so short of a time. Like I'm already so confused how it's already the middle of June. Like it just flies by so fast. And so just to be present in every moment, and not even just like at camp, but just in every like moment of your life, like no matter who you're with or like where you're at, like to be fully like present and to be fully like open. And I think as someone who likes to kind of hide or guard or like build up walls, like it's not an easy thing to be vulnerable or to like let those things down and to like be like fully like, here I am with people and even with God sometimes, but it's so worth it. And so just, I would remind myself to just, people aren't as scary as they seem to be. You can be real, you can be authentic with them, and to stay open and to stay vulnerable and to like stay present. Every moment. Because
it really does go by so fast. And you'd rather be vulnerable the first week than the last week, and then be like, oh, okay, bye, we're leaving now. So then the last one is, what would you tell yourself like off the camp high when you've been away for a long time and you're just kind of feeling tired in your walk?
I would say definitely like there's nothing like camp. Like, you can't really, like, camp isn't, like, a normal, necessarily, like, everyday experience where you're, like, surrounded by, like, your best friends playing all these games. But that doesn't mean that you can't experience camp in a way every day of your life. And I think that's the cool thing about, like, following Jesus is, like, every day can be an adventure if you're willing to, like, look for it. And so on those days maybe that you're, like, struggling or, like, tired, like, you can call, like, those people, or you can, like, look through, like, pictures even, but really it's just, like, it's really just coming back to that place of, like, the reason why I believe, like, camp is so amazing is because there's no distractions, and you're with God, and you're, like, just with people. And so I think a lot of times we can find ourselves getting in ruts is, like, we become so distracted by other things. We become distracted by our school and our sports and our friendships and our family, like, all these other things that are, like, pulling for our attention, and we forget, like, the simplicity of what it means, like, to be at camp and to be a follower of Jesus. It's just, like, loving him and loving people. And so I think, like, if that ever happens, like, to be aware of, like, hey, what might be distracting me right now? What might be getting from my attention in God? Like, where do you need to come and, like, take the throne upon my heart? Where do you need to come and, like, be, like, the source of, like, my happiness or my, like, satisfaction and, like, my worth? And so that would probably be, like, the biggest, like, indicator for me, like, coming off a camp high, because it's gonna happen. Like, it's gonna happen.
Eyes closed throughout the year.
Yeah.
Like, okay, Lord, reopen my eyes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Dayle, thank you so much. This was so fun. But I'm gonna pray before we end the show. Jesus, thank you so much that you are excited to encounter us in prayer, and thank you for all the different ways that we can be in contact with you. Lord, we want to have fun with you. We want to delight in you. We want to rejoice in you. Please lead us in the fun things, in the games, and the dancing, and our sports, and all the activities we're involved in. Lord, help us to encounter you there. And also in the quiet places in the hidden room. Jesus, take us to the deep, buried, dark parts of our hearts. And Holy Spirit, give us the courage to give those things to you in prayer so that we can become fully yours, so that we can serve you better. Lord, I thank you for the gift of community and home, and we know that heaven and with you is our true home, but we thank you that we get to experience pieces of that here on earth. I ask that you would help us to love our neighbor better, that your community would be a global one, that your body of believers would extend to every soul on this earth, and that we would all ultimately come home to you, and that we would find you in one another, and that we would love you through loving one another. It's in the name of Jesus I pray, amen. Thank y'all so much for listening. Since the kingdom is not built in the media room, it is our hope that you take these ideas into real-life conversations with friends, family, and the Lord. Be sure to find us anywhere you can scroll at Camp Yoga, and live knowing that you are loved.